I remember the exact moment my world split into before and after. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind where the sun filters through kitchen curtains in lazy stripes, and you can still pretend everything is normal. I was pouring my second cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. Not a call, just a text from Marcus's landlord. 3 words that made my hand freeze mid-pour. Haven't seen Marcus. My son had always been the independent type. From the time he was 7, refusing to hold my hand crossing the street, to moving out at 22 into that cramped studio apartment downtown. He needed space, he said, needed to figure things out on his own. I respected that. I did. But mothers never really let go, do they? We just learn to hold on differently, from a distance, with longer silences between calls. The last time we spoke was 17 days ago. Not 15. 17. I know because I counted every single one after. He called while I was driving home from the grocery store and I almost didn't answer. The Bluetooth in my car was acting up and I was tired, but something made me press that button. Hey, Mom. His voice sounded thin, stretched, like he was talking from the bottom of a well. Marcus, baby, you sound exhausted. Are you eating properly? He laughed, but it wasn't his real laugh. It was the one he used when he wanted me to stop worrying. I'm fine, Mom, just busy with work. The new manager is riding everyone pretty hard. You can always come home for dinner. I made that lasagna you like. I know, I will, soon. I promise. That was the last thing he said to me. I promise. 2 words that would echo in my head for weeks afterward, taking on new shapes, new meanings, new weights. The landlord's text came 2 days after our building's maintenance man mentioned he hadn't seen Marcus taking out his trash in over a week. Another day after that, Marcus's supervisor called me directly, which violated about a dozen privacy policies, but she was worried. Marcus had missed 5 shifts without calling. No text, no email, nothing. That wasn't like him. Everyone said the same thing. That wasn't like him. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. His cheerful message, the one he recorded 3 years ago, still young and optimistic. Hey, this is Marcus. Leave a message and I'll get back to you. Peace. Except he wasn't getting back to anyone. I drove to his apartment that first night. The building was one of those old converted warehouses, all exposed brick and industrial windows that the real estate listings called character, but really meant cheap. His unit was on the 3rd floor, number 308. I'd only been there twice. Once when he moved in, carrying boxes up those narrow stairs until my back screamed. Once for his birthday last year, surprising him with a cake I'd baked at 4 in the morning because I couldn't sleep. The hallway smelled like someone's curry and old carpet. I knocked on his door. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. Pressed my ear against the wood, listening for any sound. Television, music, breathing, anything. He's not answering, a voice said behind me. I turned to find a young woman, maybe 25, holding a laundry basket against her hip. She had purple streaks in her hair and wore an oversized sweater with holes in the sleeves. Do you know Marcus? Marcus Chen? 308? She nodded, shifting the basket. Yeah. Quiet guy. Keeps to himself mostly. Haven't seen him in a while, actually. His door's been closed. How long is a while? She bit her lip, thinking. Maybe 2 weeks? I noticed because his mail was piling up. I pushed some of it under his door, but there's still a bunch by the mailboxes. 2 weeks. My chest tightened. Did you hear anything from his apartment? Any sounds? Nothing. That's what was weird. Usually I can hear him playing video games through the wall. We share a wall, you know. He's got this racing game he plays late at night. The engine sounds are pretty distinct, but it's been quiet. I thanked her and went back to knocking. Then I called the landlord directly. Jerry was one of those old-school property managers who still wore suspenders and kept paper records. He arrived 20 minutes later with a massive key ring that jangled like Christmas bells. I can't just let you in without a welfare check, he said, scratching his bald head. That's protocol. But I can call the police, have them come do a wellness visit. Please. The officers arrived 30 minutes after that. 2 of them, young and professional, with body cameras clipped to their chests. Officer Rivera did most of the talking. She had kind eyes, the kind that had seen too much, but hadn't gone hard yet. How long has it been since you had contact with your son, ma'am? 17 days since we talked, but his work said he hasn't shown up in almost 2 weeks. She exchanged a look with her partner, Officer Kim. Something passed between them, some silent communication I couldn't decode. Jerry unlocked the door. The smell hit us first. Not death, thank God, but stale air, the kind that happens when windows stay closed too long. Leftover food gone bad. Unwashed laundry. The apartment was dim, curtains drawn against the afternoon sun. "Marcus?" Officer Rivera called out, hand near her belt. "This is the police. We're coming in for a welfare check." The apartment was small. You could see almost everything from the doorway. A kitchenette with dishes piled in the sink, a coffee table covered in energy drink cans and fast food wrappers, a couch with a rumpled blanket. Everything looked lived in but abandoned, like a photograph of someone's life caught mid-sentence. Officer Kim checked the bathroom while Rivera examined the main room. I stood in the doorway, frozen. This was my son's life. This chaos, this loneliness, this space that smelled like failure and isolation. How had I not known? How had I not seen? "Bedroom's clear," Kim called out. "No one here?" Rivera turned to me. "Ma'am, there's no sign of your son, but there's also no sign of forced entry or struggle. His keys are on the counter, wallet too. We found his phone on the nightstand, dead battery." "His phone?" My voice cracked. "He never goes anywhere without his phone." "I understand, but right now there's no evidence of foul play. Sometimes adults need space. They walk away from their lives for a bit. It happens more than you'd think. Not Marcus. He wouldn't just leave. We'll file a missing person report. Keep trying his friends, anyone he might reach out to. Sometimes people surface on their own." They left. Jerry locked the door behind them, promised to call if he saw anything, and then I was alone in that curry-scented hallway, staring at 308, wondering where my son had gone. The next week was a special kind of hell. I called everyone, his old friends from high school. Tommy answered on the third ring, sounding confused when I asked if he'd heard from Marcus. "Ms. Chen? No, I haven't talked to Marcus in maybe 6 months. We kind of drifted after college. Is everything okay? He's missing. If you hear from him, please call me immediately." There was a pause. "Missing? Like, missing? Yes. Please, Tommy, if he contacts you." "Of course. Absolutely. I'll reach out to some other guys from school, see if anyone's heard anything." But no one had. I called his roommate from college, Devin, who now lived in Seattle. He was shocked, promised to check social media, to ask around. The guy at the comic book store, an older man named Phil with thick glasses and a kind smile, remembered Marcus coming in regularly until about 3 weeks ago. "He seemed different the last time I saw him," Phil said, leaning against the counter surrounded by action figures and graphic novels. "Quieter than usual. He bought the new issue of his favorite series but didn't stay to chat like he normally does. I asked if he was okay, and he just said he was tired. I should have pressed more." "You couldn't have known," I told him, but inside I was screaming. Everyone had seen something. Everyone had noticed Marcus pulling away. Why hadn't I? I filed the missing person report. Detective Walsh became my point of contact, a tired-looking man in his 50s who'd probably seen 1,000 missing kids come and go. He was patient but realistic. His office was small, cluttered with case files and cold coffee cups. A photo of 2 teenage girls sat on his desk, smiling in graduation gowns. "Most missing adults turn up within 72 hours, he said during our first meeting at the station. "They're crashing on a friend's couch, or they checked into a motel somewhere to clear their heads. Your son's an adult, Ms. Chen. He's allowed to disappear if he wants to." "But he left his wallet, his phone, his keys. Maybe he had cash. Maybe he needed to get away from those things. Digital detox, some people call it. You don't understand. Marcus wouldn't do this." Walsh's expression softened. "I've been doing this job for 27 years. I've heard that same sentence from hundreds of parents. And you know what? Sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're wrong. People are capable of surprising us, especially our kids." I didn't believe him. Couldn't believe him. But what could I do? I posted on social media, put up flyers at the grocery store, the library, the gym. Marcus's face, frozen in last year's birthday photo, smiling at me from every telephone pole in a 5-mile radius. "Have you seen this man? Contact his mother. Please." The days blurred together. I stopped sleeping more than 3 or 4 hours a night. I'd lie in bed, staring at my ceiling, running through every conversation I'd ever had with Marcus, looking for clues. Had he been depressed? He'd sounded tired on the phone, but tired wasn't suicidal. Was he in debt? Drugs? Had someone threatened him? My sister Diane drove up from Phoenix on day 9. She stayed in Marcus's old room, the one I'd kept exactly as he left it, like a shrine to his childhood. Posters of bands he'd loved at 16, bookshelves stuffed with fantasy novels and comic books, a desk where he'd done homework while I cooked dinner downstairs. She found me in the kitchen at 2 in the morning, staring at my phone, refreshing Marcus's social media pages for the 100th time that day. No new posts, no activity, just his last update from 3 weeks ago, a photo of a sunset with the caption, "Sometimes the sky knows how you feel." "You need to sleep," Diane said gently, taking the phone from my hands. "I can't. What if he tries to call? What if I miss it? The phone will ring, you'll hear it, but you're going to make yourself sick." She pulled out a chair, sat down across from me. "Tell me what the police are doing." I filled her in on everything: the missing person report, Walsh's reassurances that most adults turn up on their own, the fact that without evidence of foul play, there was only so much they could do. Marcus was an adult. He had the right to disappear if he wanted to. "That's such bullshit," Diane said. "He's your son. He wouldn't just vanish." "That's what I keep saying. But no one's listening. They all think he's off finding himself or dealing with a crisis. They don't understand that Marcus would call me. Even if he was struggling, he'd let me know he was okay. Unless he couldn't." The words hung between us. Heavy. Terrible. "I've been to every hospital within 50 miles, I said. "Called them all. No John Does matching his description. No one admitted under his name. I've driven through every park, every area where homeless people gather, showing his photo. Nothing. It's like he evaporated." Diane reached across the table, took my hand. "What can I do? How can I help?" "I don't know. I don't know what to do anymore. I've put up flyers. I've posted online. I've called everyone I can think of. What else is there? We keep looking. We don't give up." The next morning, Diane came with me to put up more flyers. We hit the coffee shops Marcus might have visited, the grocery stores, the bus stops. People took them politely, promised to keep an eye out. Some looked genuinely concerned. Others had that expression, the one that said they'd seen too many missing person flyers to believe any of them mattered. At a coffee shop near Marcus's apartment, the barista looked at the flyer for a long moment. "I think I know him," she said. She was young, maybe 19, with a nose ring and pink hair. "Does he usually order a vanilla latte with extra foam?" "Yes," I said, my heart jumping. "That's Marcus. Have you seen him recently?" She shook her head. "Not for a couple weeks, but he used to come in almost every day. Really quiet, always had headphones on. He'd sit in the corner by the window and work on his laptop for hours." She looked at the flyer again. "He seemed sad. I always wanted to ask if he was okay, but you don't really do that with customers, you know? Now I wish I had." "If you see him," I said, my voice tight, "please call me. Please." "I will. I promise." We left more flyers and kept moving. By the end of the day, we'd covered a 10-mile radius around Marcus's apartment. My feet hurt. My throat was sore from talking. But at least I was doing something. At least I wasn't sitting at home, waiting for a phone that wouldn't ring. "You need to take care of yourself," Diane said, watching me push scrambled eggs around my plate. "You're not eating. You're not sleeping. This isn't sustainable. My son is missing. I know. But you can't help him if you collapse. The police aren't doing anything. They think he just walked away, like he's some irresponsible kid who got overwhelmed and ran off. Maybe he did." I looked up sharply. "You think I don't know my own son?" "I think you know the son you raised. But people change, especially in their 20s. Marcus has been on his own for 3 years. Maybe there's stuff going on you don't know about. He would have told me." Diane reached across the table, covered my hand with hers. "Would he? Really? Think about when you were 25. Did you tell Mom everything? Did you tell her when you were struggling with money after Dad left? Did you tell her about the nights you cried yourself to sleep, terrified you couldn't handle raising Marcus alone?" I pulled my hand away. "That was different." "Was it? Or did you keep things from her because you didn't want to seem weak? Because you wanted her to believe you had it all under control?" I stared at my plate. She was right, of course. I'd hidden so much from our mother back then. The eviction notice I'd barely managed to avoid. The nights I'd skipped meals so Marcus could eat. The crushing loneliness of being a single mother in a city where everyone else seemed to have their lives figured out. "Marcus is stronger than I was," I said quietly. "Maybe. Or maybe he's just better at hiding it. Kids learn from their parents. If you taught him anything, you taught him how to keep going no matter what, how to put on a brave face, how to not let people see you struggle. I never wanted him to learn that." "I know, but we don't always get to choose what our kids pick up from us." She paused. "What if he doesn't want to be found?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "Don't say that. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to prepare you. Walsh said it himself. Sometimes people walk away from their lives. What if Marcus needed to do that? What if coming back feels impossible to him right now? Then I'll wait. I'll wait as long as it takes. But I won't stop looking. Diane nodded slowly. Okay. Then we keep looking. Together. We didn't talk much after that. Diane stayed 3 more days, then went back to Phoenix with promises to return if I needed her. I was alone again. Just me and the silence, and the not knowing. Day 13 was when Detective Walsh called with an update. They'd checked Marcus's bank records. No activity since 2 days before he disappeared. The last charge was at a convenience store 3 blocks from his apartment. $17.42. Energy drinks and a sandwich. I imagined him making that purchase, standing in line, ordinary and alive. What had he been thinking? Where was he going? We're expanding the search, Walsh said. Checking hospitals, shelters. Sometimes people end up in places they don't expect. He's not homeless. He has an apartment. I understand. But we have to check everywhere. We're also going to release his information to the media. Local news stations. Sometimes that helps. Someone might have seen something. The thought of Marcus's face on the evening news made my stomach turn. It felt like admitting defeat. Like saying we'd exhausted all normal channels and now had to resort to public appeals. But if it meant finding him, I'd do it. Whatever it takes, I told Walsh. The news segment aired 2 days later. I watched it at home, Diane sitting beside me on the couch. The anchor was a polished woman in her 30s with perfect hair and a sympathetic expression. Marcus Chen, a 25-year-old graphic designer, has been missing for 15 days. His mother is desperate for information. They showed his photo, the same one from the flyers. Then they cut to an interview Walsh had done, explaining the circumstances. No foul play suspected. No activity on his phone or bank accounts. Simply vanished. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Friends I hadn't talked to in years. Acquaintances from the library. People I barely knew offering condolences like Marcus was already dead. I answered each call, explained the situation, asked if they'd seen anything. No one had. But one call stood out. It came 3 hours after the broadcast, from a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Chen, my name is Robert Kim. I'm a social worker at Downtown Mission. I saw the news about your son. My heart raced. Have you seen him? I'm not sure. We had a young man matching his description stay with us for 2 nights about a week ago. He wouldn't give us his name. Said he just needed a place to sleep. He left before we could get him into any of our programs. A week ago? Are you certain? I can't be certain it was him, but the description matches. Asian, mid-20s, about 5'9", thin build. He had a backpack with him, kept to himself mostly. Did he say anything? Anything about where he was going or why he was there? Not much. He mentioned feeling like he was drowning. Those were his exact words. Said he needed to figure things out away from everything. We see a lot of people in crisis. I tried to talk to him about our counseling services, but he wasn't interested. I'm sorry I can't be more helpful. I thanked him, got the address of the mission, and drove there immediately. Diane tried to come with me, but I needed to do this alone. The mission was in a rough part of downtown, nestled between a pawn shop and a boarded-up restaurant. Inside, it smelled like industrial cleaner and coffee. Robert Kim was a kind-faced man in his 40s. He showed me the sign-in sheet from that week, but the entry was just a first name. Michael, not Marcus. A lot of people use fake names, Robert explained. They're not ready to be found yet. I wish I could tell you more. Can I see where he stayed? Robert led me to a large room filled with cots. It was clean but institutional, the kind of place that provided basic shelter, but nothing like comfort. I tried to imagine Marcus here, sleeping on one of these thin mattresses, surrounded by strangers. My successful, educated son reduced to this. If he comes back, I said, please call me, please. I will. And Ms. Chen, I've been doing this work for 20 years. The fact that your son was here means he's surviving. That's something. A lot of people in his situation don't make it this far. The words should have comforted me, but they didn't. Surviving wasn't enough. I wanted him home. I wanted him safe. I wanted to understand what had happened to make my son choose sleeping in a shelter over calling his mother. Day 14. I couldn't stay away from his apartment anymore. Jerry had given me a key, probably violating some tenant privacy law, but he was a father too. He understood. I let myself in during the afternoon when the building was quiet, when I knew the purple-haired neighbor would be at work. The apartment hadn't changed. The same stale air, the same unwashed dishes. I opened a window, letting fresh air stream in for the first time in weeks. Then I started cleaning. It was something to do, something productive. I washed dishes, threw away molded food, organized the coffee table, folded the blanket on the couch. In the bedroom, I stripped the bed. The sheets smelled like Marcus, that specific combination of his shampoo and skin that every mother knows, that scent that hits you in the chest and makes you remember holding them as babies. I pressed my face into the pillow and cried for the first time since this started. Really cried. Not the leaking tears I'd been living with, but deep body-shaking sobs that hurt my ribs. When I finally stopped, my face swollen and hot, I noticed something. Under the bed, a shape, darker than the shadows. I knelt down, peered into that dusty space. A box, not a storage box, a shoebox. I pulled it out. Inside were letters, dozens of them, handwritten on lined notebook paper, folded into neat squares. I opened the first one, recognized Marcus's handwriting immediately. Dear Mom, I don't know how to tell you this in person, so I'm writing it down. Maybe I'll give you these letters someday. Maybe I won't, but I need to say it somewhere. I think I'm failing. Not at work, though that's not going great either. I mean at life, at being an adult, at being the person you thought I'd become. Every day feels heavier than the last. Getting out of bed is hard. Going to work is hard. Pretending to be okay is the hardest part of all. You always told me I could talk to you about anything, but how do I tell you I'm drowning? How do I say that out loud without breaking your heart? I see how proud you are when you talk about me to your friends. My son Marcus, he's doing so well in the city. But I'm not doing well, Mom. I'm barely hanging on. The letter continued, but I couldn't read anymore. Not yet. I sat on his bedroom floor, surrounded by these confessions, these pieces of his pain that he'd hidden away in a shoebox under his bed. There were dozens of them. Months of letters, maybe years, all unsent, all unread. I called Detective Walsh. I found something. He came to the apartment within an hour. Read through the letters with the clinical detachment of someone trained not to feel. When he finished, he looked at me with something like pity. Ms. Chen, I'm going to be straight with you. These letters suggest your son was struggling with depression. Combined with his disappearance, we need to consider all possibilities. He wouldn't hurt himself. You didn't know he was feeling this way. The words hit like a slap. He was right. I hadn't known. I'd been so busy respecting his independence, giving him space, not being the overbearing mother I'd promised myself I wouldn't be, that I'd missed everything, every sign, every cry for help hidden in casual phone conversations where he sounded tired. We'll intensify the search, Walsh said. Check areas where someone in crisis might go. But Ms. Chen, you need to prepare yourself. Sometimes people don't want to be found. Day 15. I couldn't go home. I stayed in Marcus's apartment, sleeping on his couch, wrapped in his blanket. Diane called every few hours. Walsh called with updates that weren't really updates. No news, no sightings, nothing. The news segment had generated some calls, mostly from people who thought they'd seen someone who looked like Marcus but weren't sure. Dead ends, all of them. I read through all the letters. Months of pain, documented in careful handwriting. Marcus wrote about feeling inadequate, about watching his friends from college get promoted while he struggled to make rent, about isolation, about wondering if anyone would notice if he disappeared. If he disappeared. The phrase stuck in my head. He'd written it months ago, maybe longer. Had this been planned? Had he been thinking about leaving for that long? One letter in particular haunted me. It was dated about 6 months ago. Dear Mom, today I walked past the bridge on my way home from work. You know the one? The old steel bridge over the river that they keep talking about tearing down? I stopped in the middle and looked over the edge. The water was moving fast. It looked cold. I stood there for 20 minutes, just looking, thinking about how easy it would be to climb over, how quick it would be, how all of this heaviness would just stop. But then some kid on a skateboard zoomed past me, nearly knocked me over, and I grabbed the railing to steady myself, and the metal was warm from the sun, and the kid looked back and said sorry, and I said it's okay, and I realized I was still holding the railing, still standing there, still alive. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means I'm too scared to do it or if some part of me still wants to be here. But I walked home, and I'm writing this, and maybe that's enough for today. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry I can't be the son you deserve, the one who has it all together, the one who makes you proud. I love you. Even if I'm not very good at showing it. I had to stop reading. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't hold the paper. Marcus had been suicidal. 6 months ago, maybe longer, and I'd had no idea, no clue. I'd been so focused on giving him space, on not being overbearing, that I'd completely missed the fact that my son was standing on bridges, contemplating jumping. Around 7 in the evening, as the sun started setting and the apartment filled with orange light, I decided to clean under the bed properly. If I was staying here, if I was going to wait here until Marcus came home, I wanted it to be clean. I needed to do something with my hands, something productive. The letters had left me raw and restless. I got down on my hands and knees, pulled out the shoebox of letters first, setting them carefully aside. Then an old gym bag stuffed with clothes he'd probably forgotten about. Some workout equipment, dumbbells he clearly hadn't used in months. A few books, their spines cracked and covers worn. The dust under the bed was thick. It looked like it hadn't been cleaned in years. I grabbed a flashlight from my phone, shined it into the dark space to see what else was lurking back there. And then I saw it. Movement. In the very back corner, against the wall. Something small and dark, shifting in the shadows. My heart stopped, then started again, fast and hard. For a wild second, I thought maybe it was Marcus, somehow hiding there, though that made no logical sense. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight properly, pointed it under the bed with a shaking hand. 2 eyes stared back at me, yellow-green in the phone light. Small eyes, a tiny face, smudged with dust. A cat. No, not a cat. A kitten. Skinny, dirty, absolutely terrified. It hissed at me, pressing itself against the wall as far from my light as possible. I could see its ribs through its matted fur. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Oh my God, how long have you been under there?" "Oh my God," I whispered. I didn't know Marcus had a cat. There was no litter box, no food bowls, no toys, nothing that suggested a pet lived here. I sat back, mind racing. Where had this kitten come from? How long had it been under there? I called Diane. "There's a cat in Marcus's apartment." "What?" "Under the bed. A kitten. It's been hiding under there. I don't know for how long." "Does Marcus have a cat?" "I don't think so. I've never seen any sign of one. But it's here. Maybe it got in through a window?" I looked at the window I'd opened earlier. It was only cracked, maybe 6 inches. Could a kitten fit through that? I didn't know. But suddenly, this tiny creature became important. Crucial. If there was a cat in Marcus's apartment, maybe that meant something. Maybe he'd been here more recently than anyone thought. Maybe he was coming back. "I need to get it out," I said. "Be careful. Scared animals bite." I ended the call, got down on the floor again. The kitten was still pressed against the wall, eyes wide. I could see its ribs through its fur. It was starving. "Hey, little one," I said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you. I promise." It didn't move. I got up slowly, went to the kitchen. There was nothing cat-appropriate in the fridge, but I had some chicken in a takeout container I'd brought from home yesterday. I shredded a piece, put it on a small plate, and brought it back to the bedroom. I set the plate near the bed, then backed away. Waited. The kitten watched me. Suspicious. Minutes passed. Then slowly, it crept forward, sniffed the air. One paw extended from under the bed, then another. It was a tiny thing, maybe 3 months old, gray and white with one ear that flopped down. It ate the chicken in desperate gulps, never taking its eyes off me. When it finished, it licked the plate clean, then looked up. Still scared, but less so. Hunger had won over fear. "Good," I said. "That's good. You want more?" I brought more chicken. This time, the kitten didn't wait as long. It ate again, then sat near my feet, cleaning its whiskers. I reached out slowly. It flinched but didn't run. I touched the top of its head with one finger. Soft. So soft. "Where did you come from?" I asked it. "How did you get in here?" The kitten blinked at me, meowed, a tiny, creaky sound. I checked the window again. It was the only opening in the apartment, but it was only cracked. Not enough for a kitten to squeeze through, which meant someone had let it in, or brought it in. My pulse quickened. "Marcus?" I called out to the empty apartment. "Are you here?" Silence. But the kitten was here. That was real. That was something. I searched the entire apartment again, more carefully this time. Looked in closets, behind furniture, in the bathroom cabinet. No sign of Marcus. No sign that anyone had been here recently except me. But the kitten was here. I called Walsh again. "There's a cat in my son's apartment." "A cat?" "Under the bed. It's been living under there. I think Marcus might have come back. I think he might have brought it here." Walsh was quiet for a moment. "Ms. Chen, are you sure the cat isn't from a neighbor?" Sometimes strays find their way into buildings. The apartment has been locked. The only window was closed until I opened it today. Could it have been there the whole time? When we did the wellness check, I thought back to that first day. The officers had checked the bedroom. Had they looked under the bed? I didn't remember. Maybe? I don't know. I'll make a note of it. But a cat doesn't necessarily mean your son has been back. After he hung up, I sat on the floor with the kitten in my lap. It had stopped being afraid, was now purring, a sound like a tiny motor. I stroked its fur, felt the vibrations against my palm. You know where he is, don't you? I whispered. You know something I don't. The kitten purred louder. I made a bed for it out of Marcus's softest sweatshirt, filled a bowl with water, put it in the corner of the bedroom. Then I lay down on the couch, exhausted. The kitten followed me, curled up on my chest, right over my heart. We fell asleep like that, two lost souls in an empty apartment. I woke to my phone ringing. 3 a.m, Walsh's number. We found him, he said. Everything inside me went cold. Is he alive? Yes, he's alive. He's at County General, room 412. You should come now. I drove 90 miles an hour through empty streets, the kitten in a cardboard box on my passenger seat, meowing its protest. I didn't care about speed limits or red lights. My son was alive. Alive. The word became a heartbeat. Alive. 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 The hospital smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. A nurse directed me to the 4th floor, psychiatric ward. My stomach dropped, but I kept moving. Room 412 was at the end of a long hallway. The door was partially open. I pushed through. Marcus was sitting on the bed, wearing a hospital gown, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Thinner. Older. Defeated. There were dark circles under his eyes, bruises on his arms that I didn't want to think about. His hair was longer, unkempt. But he was alive. My son was alive. His eyes met mine, and something in them broke. Mom, he said, and started crying. I crossed the room in 3 steps, pulled him into my arms. He folded into me like he used to when he was small, and I held him while he sobbed against my shoulder, his whole body shaking. He smelled different, like hospital soap and exhaustion and something else I couldn't identify. But underneath it all, he was still Marcus. Still my son. I'm sorry, he kept saying. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Shh. It's okay. You're okay now. I wanted to disappear. I just wanted it all to stop. I couldn't face it anymore. Any of it. I know, baby. I know. But you're here. You're safe. That's what matters. We stayed like that for a long time. His tears soaked through my shirt. My own tears fell into his hair. The hospital room faded away. It was just us, mother and son, holding on to each other like we were the only solid things in a world that wouldn't stop spinning. When he finally pulled back, his face was red and swollen, but some of the weight seemed lighter. Like crying had drained something toxic out of him. He wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand, the gesture so familiar it made my chest ache. He'd done that same thing when he was 7 and had fallen off his bike, scraping his knees but trying not to cry in front of the other kids. Where were you? I asked softly, reaching up to brush his hair back from his forehead. Marcus, where did you go? He looked down at his hands. They were trembling. Different places, mostly walking. I walked for days, through the city, along the river, through neighborhoods I'd never been to, slept in parks, under bridges, in that shelter you probably heard about. I wasn't thinking clearly. Everything was just too much, and I needed to stop existing for a while. Not die, I don't think. Just stop being Marcus. Stop being the person who was failing at everything. The letters. I found the letters under your bed. His eyes widened with panic. You read them? Yes. I read every single one. Marcus, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say something? Because I was ashamed. His voice cracked. Because every time we talked, you sounded so proud of me. My son, Marcus, doing so well in the city, living on his own, being independent, and I couldn't stand the thought of telling you that I was drowning, that some days I couldn't get out of bed, that I'd stand in the shower and just cry because the thought of going to work felt impossible. I never wanted you to carry that alone. I know. Logically, I know that. But depression doesn't care about logic. It just keeps whispering that you're worthless, that you're a burden, that everyone would be better off without you. And after a while, you start to believe it. By opening your mouth and saying the words, that's all I ever wanted, for you to talk to me. It's not that simple. I know it's not. But we're going to figure it out. Together. No more disappearing. No more hiding. We face it together. He looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. I don't know if I can. You can. You will. Because you're stronger than you think, and you're not alone. You've never been alone. And even on your worst day, when you couldn't see any reason to keep going, you still came back for that kitten. You still found a way to care about something other than your pain. Marcus shook his head slowly. You don't understand. The first few days, I had this weird sense of relief, like I'd escaped from a prison I didn't even know I was in. No job to go to. No bills to worry about. No expectations to fail at meeting. I just walked. Miles and miles. Through parts of the city I'd never seen. And for a while, it felt like freedom. What changed? Reality, I guess. I ran out of money. Sleeping outside is harder than it looks in movies. And being alone with your thoughts 24/7, that's when things got really dark. I started having these conversations with myself, arguing about whether it would be better to just end it all, whether anyone would even notice I was gone, whether the world wouldn't just keep spinning without me. My chest tightened painfully. I would notice. I did notice. From the first day, from the first hour, from the first second that landlord texted me. I know that now. But in those moments, depression convinces you that you're invisible, that you're already gone and just haven't figured it out yet. It tells you that people are just being polite when they say they care, that deep down, everyone would be relieved if you disappeared. That's a lie. I know. But when you're in it, you can't tell the difference between the lies and the truth. Everything gets twisted. He paused, looking down. I went to that bridge, the one I wrote about in the letters, the steel one over the river. My breath caught. When? Day 7, I think. Maybe 8. Time was blurry by then. I stood there for hours, just staring at the water, working up the courage or the cowardice, I'm still not sure which. But then this old man walked by, walking his dog. And the dog came up to me, tail wagging, and the old man said something like, "Beautiful evening, isn't it?" And I said yes, and we talked for maybe 5 minutes about nothing, about the weather, about his dog, and then he left. But somehow that stupid 5-minute conversation about nothing was enough to make me step back from the edge. Tears were streaming down my face. I'm so glad he was there. I'm so glad that dog was there. Me too. After that, I knew I couldn't stay out there anymore. I was either going to accidentally kill myself through exposure or starvation, or I was going to have to face coming back. So I went to the shelter, tried to figure out what to do next. And that's when the social worker talked to me about getting help. Real help. Not just surviving day to day, but actually dealing with what was wrong. What made you finally call for help? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Ash. Knowing she was alone in that apartment, that if I didn't go back, she'd die. And the thought of her dying because of my choices, that was somehow worse than anything else. I could accept failing myself, but failing her? I couldn't live with that. Walsh appeared in the doorway then, gave me a nod. I'll give you two some time. Marcus, we'll need to talk later about what happens next. But for now, rest. Your mom's here. After he left, Marcus lay back on the bed, exhausted. I pulled a chair close, took his hand again. The hospital bed was too small for him, his feet hanging off the end slightly. He looked so vulnerable in that thin gown, IV line taped to his arm. I found something else in your apartment, I said. A kitten, under your bed. His eyes widened with genuine alarm. Ash, is she okay? Please tell me she's okay. Ash? The kitten. I found her outside the building 3 weeks ago. She was barely alive. Skin and bones, covered in fleas, one ear all torn up. Someone had hurt her, or she'd gotten in a fight with something bigger. I couldn't just leave her there. So I brought her home. 3 weeks? But you disappeared 15 days ago. I came back. Twice. At night, when I knew no one would see me. I'd wait until after midnight, sneak in through the back entrance. I couldn't leave her alone. She needed me. I'd bring her food and water, clean her litter box, sit with her for an hour or two. Then I'd leave again before sunrise. Something cracked open in my chest. My son, drowning in his own pain, still found the strength to care for a tiny creature who needed him. Still came back, even in his darkest moments, because something depended on him. Still climbed 3 flights of stairs in the middle of the night to feed a stray cat when he couldn't even feed himself properly. She's in my car, I said. In a box. She was scared when I first found her, hissing and hiding. But then I fed her some chicken and she calmed down. She slept on my chest all night, right over my heart, purring so loud I could feel it. Marcus smiled just a little. The first real smile I'd seen from him. That sounds like Ash. She's a survivor. Like you. Maybe. We sat in silence for a while. Then Marcus said, "They want me to stay here, for observation. Maybe a few days, maybe longer. They think I'm a danger to myself." "Are you?" He considered this. "I don't know. I wasn't trying to kill myself. I just wanted everything to stop." Does that make sense? It does, and it scares me, but I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here every day. And when you get out, you're coming home with me. Not to your apartment, to the house. Until you're ready. I'm 25, Mom. I can't move back home. You can and you will. We'll figure out the apartment, get your things. But right now, you need to be somewhere safe. Somewhere with people who love you. He didn't argue. Maybe he was too tired. Or maybe some part of him wanted exactly that. To stop pretending to be okay. To stop fighting alone. A nurse came in to check his vitals. She was young, efficient, kind. After she left, Marcus said, "What about Ash? I can't leave her in that apartment alone. She's coming home with us. I already decided. You two need each other. You hate cats. I don't hate cats, I'm just allergic. But there's medicine for that. And I think having something to take care of will be good for you. Give you a reason to get up in the morning. I have plenty of reasons. I know you do, but sometimes we forget them. Sometimes we need smaller, simpler reasons. Like a kitten who needs breakfast." Marcus closed his eyes. "Thank you, Mom." "For what?" "For not giving up. For finding me. For caring about a stupid cat. She's not stupid. She survived under your bed for 2 weeks on whatever scraps she could find. That makes her resourceful. And brave. Kind of like someone else I know." He squeezed my hand. Didn't let go. I stayed there, holding his hand until he fell asleep. Then I went to my car, got the box with Ash, and brought her back to the hospital room. The nurses probably had 100 rules against animals, but I didn't care. I set the box next to Marcus's bed, opened it. Ash climbed out, looked around, then jumped onto the bed, found Marcus's hand and curled up next to it. When he woke up an hour later, the first thing he saw was the kitten. He smiled, really smiled, and I thought maybe, just maybe, we were going to be okay. The next few weeks were hard, harder than I'd expected, even bracing myself for difficulty. Marcus stayed in the hospital for 6 days. They diagnosed him with severe depression and generalized anxiety disorder. Started him on medication, though the psychiatrist warned it would take at least 2 to 3 weeks to feel the full effects, maybe longer to find the right dosage. Set him up with a therapist. Dr. Patel was a quiet woman in her 40s who specialized in young adults and crisis intervention. She had kind eyes and a way of asking questions that made you want to answer honestly. She met with Marcus every day in the hospital, then twice a week after he was released. I sat in on the first few sessions, at Dr. Patel's suggestion. She said family involvement was crucial, that we needed to rebuild trust and communication that had broken down without either of us realizing it. In those sessions, I learned things about my son I'd never known. About the pressure he felt to succeed, not just for himself, but for me. About how every time I'd mentioned how proud I was, he'd heard it as an expectation he couldn't meet. About watching his college friends get married, buy houses, get promoted, while he struggled to make rent on a studio apartment. About the loneliness of living alone in a city where everyone seemed to have their life figured out except him. About coworkers who talked about their weekend plans, their families, their vacations, while he went home to an empty apartment and leftover takeout. About the shame of asking for help. About nights spent lying awake, wondering if anyone would notice if he disappeared. About writing those letters because he couldn't say the words out loud. "Your mother worked 2 jobs to put you through college," Dr. Patel said gently during one session, her hands folded in her lap. "And you've told me you interpreted that as a debt you had to repay. Can you talk more about that?" Marcus nodded, still not looking at me. His hands were clasped tight in his lap. "She gave up everything for me. Her social life, any chance of dating or finding someone. Every extra dollar went to my education, my activities, making sure I had what I needed. And what did I do with all that sacrifice? Got a degree and ended up in a dead-end job that barely paid rent. A job I hated, a life I hated. How was I supposed to tell her that? How could I face her knowing I'd wasted everything she'd sacrificed?" The words hit me like physical blows. "I never felt that way," I said, my voice tight with emotion. "Not once. Not for a single second. You didn't waste anything, Marcus. You're living your life. That's all I ever wanted for you. Just to be happy. To be okay. But I'm not okay. I'm not happy. I'm barely surviving. And that feels like the ultimate failure." Dr. Patel leaned forward slightly. "Marcus, when you think about what your mother wanted for you, where did you get the idea that it was perfection? That it was a high-paying job and a perfect life? He was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Society, I guess. TV shows where everyone has their shit together by 30. College advisors talking about career trajectories and 5-year plans. Friends posting on social media about their achievements. I just assumed that's what success looked like, and anything less than that was failure. What would it look like to really live? Dr. Patel asked. Not just survive, but live in a way that feels meaningful to you? Marcus shook his head. I don't know. That's the scariest part. I don't even know what I want anymore. I just know what I don't want, which is this constant feeling of drowning. This feeling that I'm one mistake away from complete collapse. That's okay, Dr. Patel said softly. We don't need to have all the answers right now. Recovery isn't linear. It's not about having everything figured out. It's about taking it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time if necessary. Can you commit to that? Can you commit to one more day? Marcus looked at her, then at me. Yeah, I think so. Especially now that I know Ash is okay, that I'm not letting her down. We talked about Ash a lot in those sessions. How she'd become this unexpected anchor point for Marcus when everything else felt untethered and chaotic. How caring for her had given him a sense of purpose when he couldn't find purpose in anything else. How coming back to feed her, even in his darkest moments, had been the thing that kept him from disappearing completely. Dr. Patel called it meaningful responsibility. She said sometimes people in crisis need something outside themselves to focus on, something that depends on them. That Ash had probably saved Marcus's life without either of them knowing it. But he was talking now. Really talking. Not just to Dr. Patel, but to me. Long conversations over dinner at the kitchen table, the kind we hadn't had since he was in high school. The kind where we'd lose track of time, where the food would get cold because we were too caught up in the conversation to eat. He told me about work, about the manager named Rick who would stand over people's desks and criticize their work loudly enough for the whole office to hear. About coworkers who'd stopped inviting him to lunch because he'd said no too many times. About feeling like a failure every single day, watching the clock, counting down hours until he could go home and hide. I told him about my own struggles after his father left. About nights I'd cried myself to sleep, terrified I couldn't do it alone. About the eviction notice I'd gotten when Marcus was 5, how I'd begged the landlord for 1 more week and then worked triple shifts to make rent. About the weight of single parenthood and the constant fear that I was messing him up, that one wrong move would damage him forever. About the guilt I felt when I couldn't afford the field trips, or the new shoes, or the birthday parties at the arcade. I never knew that, Marcus said, his fork frozen halfway to his mouth. You always made it seem like we were okay. That was the point. I didn't want you to worry. Didn't want you to feel the weight of our financial situation. You were a kid. You deserved to be a kid. But by hiding it, you taught me to hide things too. You taught me that struggling was something to be ashamed of, something to keep secret. The realization hit me hard. He was right. In trying to protect him, I'd modeled exactly the behavior that had nearly destroyed him. I'm sorry, I said. I thought I was doing the right thing. You were. You did what you thought was best. But maybe we both need to learn that it's okay to not be okay, that asking for help isn't weakness. Yeah, maybe we do. One night, while we were washing dishes together, Ash weaving between our legs and meowing for attention, Marcus said something that made me stop mid-scrub. You gave me everything. That's part of what made it so hard. I felt like I owed you this perfect life, this perfect success. And when I couldn't deliver it, I felt like I was letting you down. You could never let me down. Not by being human, not by struggling. Marcus, you don't owe me anything. Raising you wasn't a transaction. It was a privilege. Yes, it was hard. Yes, I sacrificed. But I do it all again in a heartbeat because you're worth it. Not because of what you achieve or what you accomplish, just because you exist, because you're my son. He set down the plate he was drying, his hands shaking. I wish I'd known that sooner. I wish I'd believed it. You can believe it now. That's what matters. We can't change the past, but we can change how we move forward. Yeah, me too. He picked up Ash, who'd been demanding attention with increasingly loud meows. What about you, little monster? You think I'm enough? Ash purred, rubbing her face against his chin. Marcus laughed, the sound lighter than I'd heard in months. Maybe years. Those early weeks at home were full of small moments like that. Learning each other again. Building new patterns. Marcus would wake up around 7, take his medication, feed Ash. Some mornings he'd come downstairs looking okay. Other mornings I could see the weight on him before he even spoke. Those were the hard days. The days where getting dressed felt like climbing a mountain. where the thought of checking his email sent him spiraling into anxiety. "It's okay to have bad days," Dr. Patel told him during one session. I was there, sitting in the corner chair, learning how to support him better. Recovery isn't a straight line. You're going to have setbacks, days where you feel like you're back at square one. That doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're human. "But how do I know the difference between a bad day and sliding back into that dark place?" Marcus asked. "How do I know when to be concerned?" Communication. You keep talking to your support system. Your mom. Me. If you start having thoughts about hurting yourself again, you call immediately. We have crisis numbers, we have protocols. You don't have to face those moments alone. Marcus looked at me. "What if I scare you? What if it's too much?" "Then it's too much, and we deal with it. But you don't get to make that decision for me. I'd rather be scared and know what's going on than be ignorant while you suffer in silence." He nodded slowly. That became our agreement. Radical honesty, Dr. Patel called it. No more hiding. No more pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Marcus quit his job, the one with the terrible manager and the long hours and the feeling of inadequacy that followed him home every night. Dr. Patel helped him understand that work should challenge you, not destroy you. That a job that makes you want to disappear isn't a job worth keeping, no matter what it pays or how it looks on paper. "What if I can't find anything else?" Marcus asked during one session. "What if this is as good as it gets for me?" Then we reassess. We figure out what you actually want to do, not what you think you should do. There's a difference. You've been living according to someone else's script for so long, you've forgotten to ask yourself what you actually want. That question haunted him for days. What did he want? He'd spent so long just trying to survive, trying to meet expectations, trying to be the person he thought he should be, that he'd lost sight of who he actually was. He started looking for something new, something that fit better. But the job market was brutal. Every rejection email felt like confirmation that he'd made a mistake leaving his old job, that he'd thrown away the one thing keeping him afloat, even if that thing was slowly drowning him. "Maybe I should just go back," he said one night after his 10th rejection. "Call Rick, apologize, ask for my job back." "Is that what you want?" I asked carefully. "No, but maybe what I want doesn't matter. Maybe I just need to be practical. Bills don't care about my mental health. You're staying here, with me. There are no bills to worry about right now. We have time to find something that actually fits you. I can't live with my mom forever. I'm 25. You can live with your mom as long as you need to. There's no age limit on needing support. And once you're stable, once you find something good, then we'll talk about next steps. But right now, your only job is to get better. Everything else is secondary." In the meantime, he picked up some freelance graphic design work, stuff he could do from home, on his own schedule, from my home, his old room. The first few projects were small: logo designs for local businesses, social media graphics for a friend of a friend. The money was nothing compared to his old salary, but something about the work felt different. He'd come downstairs with his laptop, show me what he'd created, and there'd be this light in his eyes that had been missing for so long. "Look at this," he said one afternoon, turning his screen toward me. It was a poster design for a community theater group. Bold colors, dynamic typography, an illustration style that was uniquely his. They gave me complete creative freedom, just said make it eye-catching and fun, and I actually enjoyed working on it. I stayed up until 2 in the morning because I wanted to, not because I had to. It's beautiful. Really beautiful. "You're so talented, Marcus." He ducked his head, embarrassed. "It's just a poster." "It's not just a poster. It's proof that you can create things that matter, that bring joy. That's not nothing." The work started coming more regularly. Word of mouth from satisfied clients. A small design studio reached out, said they'd seen his portfolio online, asked if he'd be interested in contract work. Nothing permanent, but flexible hours, decent pay, projects that actually interested him. "It's not what I thought my career would look like," he admitted. "It's not some fancy agency with a corner office and a 6-figure salary. But maybe that was never what I actually wanted. Maybe that was just what I thought success was supposed to look like." It was strange, having him back in the house. Good strange. We fell into a rhythm that felt both new and familiar. I'd make breakfast every morning, usually scrambled eggs and toast, the same breakfast I'd made him throughout his childhood. He'd feed Ash, who'd grown increasingly demanding about her mealtimes. We'd eat together at the kitchen table, talking about our plans for the day or just sitting in comfortable silence. Then he'd work while I went to my job at the library. I'd come home to find dinner started, or the living room vacuumed, or Ash wearing a tiny bow tie Marcus had made from ribbon he'd found in my sewing kit. She likes to dress up, he explained seriously one evening, while Ash licked her paws, completely unbothered by the accessory. I've been documenting her different looks, thinking about starting an Instagram account for her. An Instagram account for the cat? She's very photogenic, and people love cats online. It could be good for my portfolio. Show I can do photography and graphic design. I laughed. It was such a normal thing to worry about, such a normal plan. After months of crisis and fear and not knowing if my son would survive, here we were discussing social media accounts for his cat. It felt like a miracle. Diane visited again, this time with smiles instead of worry. She brought Marcus a new sketchbook, something she remembered he used to love. High-quality paper, perfect bound, the kind that was meant for real art, not just doodling. I thought you might want to get back into drawing, she said. You used to fill notebooks with your sketches. Remember? Marcus took the sketchbook like it was something precious. I haven't drawn in years. Not really drawn, I mean. I do design work, but that's different. That's commercial. This is... He trailed off, running his hand over the cover. Personal, Diane finished. Yeah, I thought maybe you could use some personal creative time. No clients, no deadlines, just drawing because you want to. He started drawing again. Little things at first, Ash sleeping in various positions, which gave him plenty of material since the cat napped approximately 18 hours a day. The view from the kitchen window, the big oak tree in the backyard that had been there since we'd moved in 20 years ago. His hands holding a coffee cup, studies of light and shadow, then bigger projects, more ambitious. A comic he'd been thinking about for years but never had the courage to start. It's about a guy who gets lost, he told me, showing me the first few pages. But instead of being a tragedy, it's about what he finds while he's lost. The people he meets, the parts of himself he didn't know existed. It's beautiful. It's therapy, he said with a wry smile. Dr. Patel would be proud. 3 months after that terrible night in the hospital, Marcus moved into a new apartment. Not the old one. We'd cleaned that out together one weekend in June, packed up his things, sorted through what to keep and what to let go. The apartment had felt like a tomb, full of ghosts and bad memories. Jerry had been understanding, let us out of the lease early. This new place was different, smaller and cheaper, which took some pressure off. But it was in a better neighborhood, the kind with tree-lined streets and a coffee shop on the corner. It had big windows that let in lots of light, space for Ash to run around and climb the cat tree Marcus had assembled. A kitchen where Marcus could actually cook instead of living on energy drinks and fast food. I helped him move in, just like I'd helped him move into the old place 3 years ago. But this time was different. This time, I knew what was in his head. I knew about the depression, about the medication he took every morning without fail, about the therapy appointments twice a week, about the hard days and the good days and the days that were somewhere in between. We'd spent hours unpacking boxes, arranging furniture, making the space feel like home. Marcus had been particular about it in a way he never had been before. The couch needed to face the windows for natural light. Everything had a purpose, a place. This feels different, he said, standing in the middle of the living room. The old apartment always felt temporary. But this feels like it could actually be home. That's because you're different. You're not running from anything anymore. I'm not sure that's true. I think I'm still running. I'm just running towards something now instead of away. You going to be okay here alone? I asked, after we'd unpacked the last box. The sun was setting. Ash was already claiming the sunny spot by the window. Marcus looked around his new space. I won't be alone. I've got Ash. And I've got you. And Dr. Patel. And that support group she recommended. And my new job starting next month. That design studio came through with a permanent position. That's a lot of people. Yeah, it is. Turns out I wasn't as alone as I thought I was. I just had to stop pretending I didn't need anyone. He walked me to my car. At the driver's door, he hugged me. A real hug, not the quick one-armed things he used to give me. Full body, holding on tight, meaning it. Thank you, he said, for not giving up, for searching, for finding that damn cat who saved my life. She found me, really. She was the clue I needed. She's good at that, showing up when you need her most. I drove home thinking about that, about tiny creatures surviving in impossible circumstances, about my son, who'd gotten lost but found his way back, about the strength it takes to ask for help, to admit you're not okay, to keep going even when everything in you wants to stop. The house felt empty without Marcus and Ash, but it was a different kind of empty than before. Not lonely, just quiet. I had my own therapy appointment the next day. Dr. Morrison was helping me work through the guilt I felt about missing the signs, about being so focused on giving Marcus space that I'd given him too much, about the fear that still woke me up at 3 in the morning, whispering that he might disappear again. You can't control everything, Dr. Morrison said during one session. You can't protect him from life. You can only be there when he falls. And you were. You are. What if next time I'm not fast enough? Then you'll do your best anyway. That's all any of us can do. Marcus called me every night now. Not because I asked him to, but because he wanted to. We'd talk about our days, small things, Ash's new favorite toy, the weird customer at the library, his progress on the comic. Sometimes we didn't talk much at all, just stayed on the phone while we did other things. The silence was comfortable, full instead of empty. 6 months after he moved into the new apartment, Marcus invited me to dinner. He'd cooked. Actual cooking, not takeout. Pasta with homemade sauce, garlic bread, salad. This is amazing, I said, genuinely impressed. YouTube tutorials, and maybe a few calls to Aunt Diane for advice. Ash jumped onto my lap, demanded attention. I scratched behind her ears, felt her purr against my palm. She'd grown into a beautiful cat. All that scrawniness filled out into sleek muscle. Her flopped ear gave her a permanent look of curiosity. I've been thinking, Marcus said, setting down his fork, about that night, when you found Ash under the bed. Yeah? I left her food and water before I disappeared. Not much, but enough for a few days. I thought I'd be back. Part of me always thought I'd be back. But then days turned into a week, and the week kept going, and I couldn't face coming home. Couldn't face the mess I'd made of everything. But you did come back. For her. Yeah, I did. And I think that mattered. I think she saved me in a weird way. Gave me a reason to come home when I didn't have any others. She needed you. We needed each other. He looked at the cat who was now grooming herself on my lap, completely unconcerned with the heavy conversation happening around her. I used to think needing people was a weakness, that if I couldn't do everything alone, I was failing. But Ash taught me different. She needed me, and that didn't make her weak. It made her smart. She knew she couldn't survive alone, so she found someone who could help. That's very profound for a cat, Marcus laughed. Dr. Patel says I'm projecting, but I don't think so. I think sometimes the universe sends you exactly what you need when you need it, even if it's a half-starved kitten hiding under your bed. We finished dinner, did dishes together while Ash supervised from the counter. When I left, Marcus walked me to my car again. The ritual we'd developed, making sure I got out safely, making sure he wasn't alone when the door closed. Same time next week? He asked. Wouldn't miss it. I drove home through the city streets, past the old apartment building where this all started, past the parks where Marcus had walked for days trying to escape himself. The city looked different now, less threatening, more full of possibilities. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. Marcus, you okay? I asked, sudden worry spiking through me. Yeah, I'm good. I just wanted to tell you something. I've been working on it with Dr. Patel. Something I needed to say. Okay. I forgive myself for disappearing, for scaring you, for all of it. I'm not healed, I'm not fixed, but I forgive myself for being human, for struggling, for needing help. My eyes burned with tears. Good tears. I'm proud of you, Marcus. So incredibly proud. I know. You tell me every time we talk. Well, I'm going to keep telling you, until you believe it as much as I do. Deal. Love you, Mom. Love you too, baby. I sat in my car after we hung up, letting the tears fall. They weren't sad tears. They were relief. They were gratitude. They were the kind of tears that come when you realize you almost lost something precious, but you didn't. You held on. You fought. You found your way back to each other. Inside the house, I found the shoebox of letters I'd taken from Marcus's apartment. I'd kept them, unsure what to do with them. They were painful to read, full of Marcus's darkest thoughts. But they were also proof of his survival. Every letter was a day he'd made it through. Every word was evidence that he'd kept going, even when he didn't want to. I pulled out one of the last letters he'd written. It was dated 2 days before he disappeared. Dear Mom, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Everything feels impossible. Getting out of bed, going to work, pretending I'm okay when I'm not. I'm so tired of pretending. But then I think about you. About how disappointed you'd be if you knew how much I was struggling. About how much you sacrificed to give me a good life. And I feel guilty for even thinking about giving up. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if it can be fixed. But I found a kitten today. She was hiding by the dumpster, starving and scared. I brought her home, fed her. She fell asleep in my lap while I was writing this. She's purring. It's the first time in weeks I've felt like I did something right. Maybe that's enough for now. Maybe I just need to focus on keeping her alive. One day at a time, one meal at a time. Maybe if I can save her, I can figure out how to save myself. I read the letter 3 times, then put it back in the box. Marcus had been right. Ash had saved him, but he'd saved her too. They'd saved each other. And in doing that, he'd found his way back to me. Back to himself. My phone buzzed. A photo from Marcus. Ash sprawled across his laptop keyboard, preventing him from working. The caption read, "She says I need to take a break. Who am I to argue with a cat?" I smiled, saved the photo, sent back a heart emoji. Then I got up, made myself tea, and sat at the kitchen table with a book I'd been meaning to read for months. The house was quiet, but not empty. Never empty. Not anymore. Because even when we're apart, we're together. Marcus in his apartment with Ash, me in this house with my tea and my books and my phone that could ring at any moment. Both of us working on being okay. Both of us knowing that struggling doesn't mean failing. That needing help doesn't mean weakness. That getting lost sometimes leads you to exactly where you need to be. That night, I slept better than I had in months. And when I woke up the next morning to a text from Marcus, a simple good morning with a photo of Ash yawning, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not the desperate hope of those 15 days when he was missing. Not the fragile hope of those first weeks after the hospital. But solid, grounded hope. The kind that comes from knowing we'd survived the worst and came out stronger. The kind that says we can handle whatever comes next because we're not facing it alone. And maybe that's what the journey is really about. Not about never falling. Not about never getting lost. But about finding your way back. About accepting help when you need it. About forgiving yourself for being human. About the people and the tiny creatures who show up exactly when you need them. Hiding under beds and purring against your chest and reminding you that survival is possible. That hope is possible. That love is possible. Even in the darkest moments. Especially in the darkest moments. Marcus was right. Sometimes the universe sends you exactly what you need. Sometimes it's a phone call from a worried landlord. Sometimes it's a detective who doesn't give up. Sometimes it's a sister who drives through the night to hold your hand. And sometimes it's a half-starved kitten moving under the bed, waiting to be found. Waiting to save a life while saving her own. Waiting to prove that even in our lowest moments, we're not alone. We never were. We just forgot how to look. But when we remember, when we finally open our eyes and see all the people reaching for us, all the love surrounding us, all the reasons to keep going, that's when the real healing begins. That's when we find our way home.